and I want to talk to you today about the 5 pillars of full spectrum hemp oil. So the 5 pillars of effective hemp products start with 1 being full spectrum oil, 2 being sourcing, 3 being extraction, 4 being stability, and 5 being bioavailability. Let's talk about those 5 pillars in detail. The first one is full spectrum oil. What is full spectrum oil and what it is not? So what full spectrum oil is industrial hemp oil that has been refined, purified without destroying the medicinal and healthy cannabinoid, flavonoids, and terpene benefits of the oil. What it is not is marijuana. It is not hemp seed oil. It is not pure CBD oil, isolate, distillate, or synthetic. Let me talk to you a little bit about, I get a lot of questions about what it means by pure CBD oil. What pure CBD oil is synthetics, isolates, or distillates that have been purified or extracted to the point that they have no other cannabinoids, terpenes, or flavonoids as part of those oils, which make them not unlock the full potential of full spectrum hemp oil. It's proven in many studies and in practical use today that an isolate or a distillate or a synthetic is not nearly as effective, sometimes 10 times less effective, and it doesn't even work on all the same things that a full spectrum hemp oil works on. So let's talk about what makes up a full spectrum oil. Full spectrum hemp oil has over 8 essential fatty acids. That's omega-3, 6, 9. The fatty acid profile of a full spectrum oil affects brain development, it affects healthy skin, it affects healthy hearts and joints. These are all components of fatty acids. And an isolate, a distillate, a synthetic has none of those essential fatty acids that complement each other to make it work in the way that a full spectrum oil works. So those essential fatty acid components of the full spectrum oil become very important to the health benefits of full spectrum oil. The other part of what we know about full spectrum oils now and how it works on both the C1 and the C2 receptors. An isolate, a distillate, a breakout of one cannabinoid does not work on all the different components in the body. The way the body works, the way the body reacts, and the way that the full spectrum hemp oil works in the body is on the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system was only discovered in the late 1990s. And there's a lot that we don't know about it, but what we do know about it now is there are 2 predominant receptor sites, and that is the C1 and the C2. The C1 receptor sites are the ones that work on both the brain and the CNS system, and that is why you get so many CNS effects with a full spectrum oil. The CB2 sites are primarily in the immune system, and that's why that when you get a full spectrum oil, they're working on both those sites. You have multiple effects. That's why the endocannabinoid system can work on multiple different pathways in the body. And the endocannabinoid system is very similar to a computer system in your car that helps regulate the whole entire body functions in different areas in the body. If you just use one component, like a part of the CBD or the full spectrum oil, such as one cannabinoid, you're not going to get the effects that you get like you get when you get a full spectrum oil when you're hitting both the C1 and the C2 receptor sites. That's why a full spectrum oil is so important in a product and not something that has been taken apart and put back together that may look or claim to be a full spectrum, but is not in its native state. There's a reason why hemp was made and created, if you choose to use those terms, in the way that it does, because it unlocks this fantastic and amazing benefits to the body through the endocannabinoid system. But you have to have all those components. You have to have the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, the terpenes. You have to be firing off those C1 and those C2 to create this, what we call it in the industry and in medicine, we call it the entourage effect. Without all those components working together, you have kind of like a band playing with one instrument. You might have a drum in the background, but it doesn't work the same as you do when you have a full spectrum oil. The next important thing with a full spectrum oil is the sourcing. So let me talk to you a little bit about the definitions between industrial hemp and the other side of cannabis, which is marijuana. Industrial hemp are cannabis sativa strains that have THC delta 9 less than 0.3% in the US. This is a very strict and a very exact definition that the federal government has put on that. If your industrial hemp, in order to be categorized as industrial hemp, you have to have THC levels below this. At no time is an industrial hemp plant a marijuana plant. Hemp grows to be about 15 to 20 feet tall. It looks like sugar cane when you walk out in the hemp fields. It's mostly grown outdoors. There's no psychoactive effect for an industrial hemp plant. On the other hand, you have marijuana, which is grown mostly indoors. Most of them are 3 to 6 feet tall. They're bushy. They have lots of buds on them. They've cultivated these things in modern day to produce high amounts of THC. The THC in a marijuana plant can be high as 20 or 30%, whereas an industrial hemp plant, it's below 0.3%. There is no way that an industrial hemp plant can get you high with a product that is certified industrial hemp. Let me give you a little example that I always use. And if you've been around farming, you know this. The difference between industrial hemp and marijuana seeds, even though they're the same genus, meaning they're both cannabis, is the same as between feed corn and sweet corn. Sweet corn is what you put on your table. It's what you buy in the grocery store to cook at barbecues. Feed corn is what they grow to feed to animals. It's what they use for corn sweeteners. It's what they use for industrial purposes of corn. That's the equivalent of what industrial hemp is. Industrial hemp is used for clothing, rope, textiles, horse bedding, lots of different building materials. And the oil extracted from that is what we use to make our full spectrum hemp oil products. At no time can you take a piece of feed corn, and even if it's young and it's just barely growing, you can't pull that and barbecue it and make it taste good. It is not grown that way. It's not genetically made up to do that. That's the same with industrial hemp. Industrial hemp seeds are grown for a very specific type of hemp, and marijuana plants are grown for an entirely different type of cannabis. And so the difference, at no time in their growth are they ever the same. As you can see, that one of the things that we run into a lot in making these kinds of products is the actual certification paperwork. What you're seeing here is the actual certified Kentucky hemp papers that the Department of Agriculture produces and certifies every grow that comes out of Kentucky. One of the reasons we like Kentucky hemp is because not only is it certified, but as a broad in as far as a state, but every grow that goes out of these producers in Kentucky is certified. They have to go out and do the testing, and if it's not at the level that it's supposed to be, it's destroyed. You get into some of these other states and other less aggressive agricultural programs, they can't test their hemp. They don't have enough people to go out. And so what we get coming across the border from some of these states is industrial hemp that has THC levels that are way higher than the 0.3%. We also find that the purity and the levels that they're getting out of these grows are not overseen by a Department of Agriculture that is so vigilant about making sure what we're getting is pure and it's what the label says it's going to be. The next pillar that we have is actually extracting. There's lots of ways to get the industrial the oil, the full spectrum hemp oil out of the plant. You can take it, you can chemically strip it out and use toxic solvents to pull that oil out of the plant. We don't like any of those sources right now because some of those residues, some of those things coming out of those extractions, those chemical extractions and stripping end up in the final product. We don't like that. We tend to go, and what our standard is now is to use the gold standard of extraction, which is supercritical CO2 extraction. In this way, the hemp is put into these CO2 machines. It's more expensive. It takes a little longer, but the output is this pure hemp oil that we get out of those industrial hemp plants. And that's what we want to put in our products. So using supercritical CO2 is the gold standard. The other types of extractions that you'll get will lead to, you can get isolates and distillates out of these chemical strippings, but what you're getting is not the same as what you get out of a supercritical CO2 extractor, which we just love, and the oil coming out of there is just beautiful. So let's talk about the next pillar in our full spectrum oil, which is stability. Stability is a very critical factor in making full spectrum hemp oil products. A lot of companies will come out and say, hey, we've got this bioavailable form, we've got this liposome or this nano that is just the best thing ever. But one of the things that no one talks about in these products is the stability. One of the terms we use in the industry is called nutrient fallout. It's a term used to describe whether an ingredient stays in its ideal bioavailable form or it falls out and lies at the bottom or the top of a solution. Liposomes are one of the things that you see a lot out in the market. I come from the pharmaceutical and the biotech industry. Liposomes failed in the pharmaceutical industry over 15 years ago because of one key factor. They are not stable. In fact, if you get a liposome over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the thing falls apart. So when these things are being shipped across the country, I don't care where they're being shipped to, but in some post office and some truck, especially in the summer, they're all going to give above 80 degrees. So nutrient fallout you want to avoid, and you want to avoid stability issues. Our full spectrum oil is stable in both hot and cold conditions. It's not affected by the change in the temperatures. It's not affected by the charge in the waters. It's not affected by the stomach acid, and it has extremely long stability. Over 2 years is what we've looked at, and it's completely stable. You can see by this slide illustration, looking under an electron microscope, how uniform and tight these tiny water cells are that we put the product into. That means that it is small and tight. They're about 22 nanometers, which means that those cells will stay very tight and very stable for a long amount of time. And yet, when they get into the body, they can go to their cells and they can go do what they need to do, which is you want in a full spectrum oil and in a bioavailable product. Let's talk about the fifth and final pillar of full spectrum oil, which is bioavailability. I've saved the best for last. The Achilles heel of full spectrum hemp oil and hemp oil in general is bioavailability. Bioavailability of native full spectrum hemp oil is only 6%, and the onset of action is between 60 and 90 minutes. That's the equivalent of going to a gas station and taking your nice car and going to the pump and pulling out premium gas and pouring it all over the pavement until 94% of that is on the ground. And you put that in and put the last 6% in your tank. No one's going to do that. No one's going to go take your minivan, your Ferrari, your SUV, whatever you drive, and pour out almost all the gas onto the pavement. And yet we do that every day when we take oils and nutrients into our body that are not absorbed. A lot of companies will go out there and say, hey, we've got bioavailability data, and they'll show you some obscure trial that was done on animal tissue layers or on some kind of in vitro test, some kind of cell test. What I say to you is, show me the data. We've done 2 human studies and 1 animal study to look at bioavailability. The most important of that is the human studies. In our animal models, we showed that you can get 85% absorption through the intestinal tract, meaning that 85% of the nutrient passes through the intestinal tract into the body. But absorption is not bioavailability. Absorption is just one component of that. It's an important component, but it doesn't tell the whole story. The most important story is the bioavailability data, which means how much of it is going into your bloodstream and actually going to the cells and to the end places where they go. If you're triggering those C1 and C2 receptor sites, you're going to need to get into the bloodstream, and you're going to have to do it fast and get out there. So let's look at the actual data from the human bioavailability studies that we've done. And this was repeated twice so that we made sure we knew what was actually going on in the body. So if you look at this data, you'll notice a couple things really fast. One is that the peak effect happens within 30 minutes, but at 15 minutes, over half of the full spectrum oil is already in your bloodstream. And when people take this, within 10 to 15 minutes, they start to feel an effect. The second part of this is that within 30 minutes, almost all of the full spectrum oil is in the bloodstream and going to the different areas in your body. Compare that to the regular standard full spectrum oil. It's so much lower and takes so much longer that people have to take extremely high doses and wait a long time for it to feel effect. The other thing too is the duration of action. The duration of action you can see on this slide is that it's about 12 hours you're getting that full spectrum effect in the body. So we tell people that if you're taking this for acute conditions, you can take it and feel effect within 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, you're going to start to feel something. A lot of people feel it within 5 minutes. The second part is that you're going to get the full effect and it's going to last in there for a long time. And you have to take a much lower dose of that. Anytime you can take lower amounts and get a higher effect is better. There's no need to go back to my illustration of the gas pump. There's no reason to take 94% of something and have it just go out the body and just use the last 6%. The better thing is to use almost all of what you're taking. And that's what we do with this full spectrum hemp oil with our technology, is you get a high amount of it very quickly and it stays in your body for a long time. In summary, these 5 pillars make up the industry leader in full spectrum hemp oil. Some companies may have 1 pillar, some companies may have 2 pillars, some companies may have 3 pillars, but only Q Science is going to deliver these 5 pillars in their full spectrum hemp oil products. And these products will make a huge difference in people's lives. We've seen it over and over. And at the end of the day, if we can help people and we can help ourselves and be better and healthier, that is what it's all about. And this technology and these full spectrum hemp oils, these full spectrum hemp oil products will deliver it in a way that no others can do that.